and welcome to the course Social Behavior in the Brain, an Introduction to Social Neuroscience. I am Dr. Arak Verma, an Associate Professor in the Department of Cognitive Science at IIT Kanpur. This is the final week of the course where we are going to talk about social affective processing with special attention to how negative affect is processed. Now, a very interesting old custom in Guatemalan villages is of whispering one's worries to worry dolls at night and keeping them under one's pillow before going to sleep. It is believed that expressing or describing one's worries to such dolls has actually the potential to diminish one's experienced stress. In the following few lectures, we will discuss this disruption to negative feelings when one verbalizes them. Now, again, if you think of this, it is something that is part of conventional wisdom as well. It's part of our experienced truths as well, that the more we actually talk about our troubles, the more we talk about our worries to our friends, to family members, to people who we know, to people who we share a lot with, it sort of provides us a perspective. It diminishes how bad, let us say, we are feeling about something or how sad we are about something. And one of the most important aspects of friendship, or one of the most important aspects of belonging to a family is the fact that we can actually share our feelings towards X, Y and Z with family members, with friends, and basically get a better perspective. It not only helps us to get a more rational, probably more rational, more multifaceted view on certain things, but phenomenally it actually helps us limit or reduce the pain, reduce the negative feeling, the sadness that we are feeling about something. This particular phenomena has been referred to as disruption of negative affect. Disruption of negative affect happens whenever we find a chance to express or verbalize our feelings. In the last week, in the next few lectures, what we are going to be doing is we are going to try and understand how does talking about our sad feelings, how does talking about our negative feelings helps us to reduce or minimize them. Now, this idea again that verbalizing negative feelings somehow diminishes them is neither new nor limited to just specific culture. It is not new to Guatemalan villages who have their worry dolls. The story is that every parent hands out a worry doll, 1-inch small, wooden dolls, and teaches their children to sort of, vent out all their worries and concerns to these dolls with the hope that these dolls will basically take their worries away. Metaphorically speaking, obviously. But the idea is that this is something which is known to work across different cultures. For instance, in some of the oldest Buddhist texts, labeling of emotions is proposed to induce a healthy level of detachment with them, and say, for example, speaking out one's mood and emotion is expected to reduce one's identification with them. So the idea is, if you are analyzing your feelings, if you are talking about them, if you're labeling them that, oh, I am consciously feeling sad, I'm feeling sad about this thing, I'm feeling angry because of this specific reason, it basically helps us get a little bit detached with this. The idea is that I am not all the rage, but I am experiencing rage. And once you go to that level that, oh, I am experiencing rage because of X, Y and Z, you start understanding your thought processes better, you start understanding the cause of the rage, and then you can start rationalizing to yourself that, okay, this may be a good thing, bad thing, survivally important, not important, and you can actually decide to sort of lower down the physiological arousal, the emotional upheavals that you are feeling as a result of whatever events are causing them. And it's not only with in the Orient, it's not only with the Buddhist texts. Also, a lot of Western thinkers have actually talked about the benefit of verbalizing one's emotions. For example, Benedict Spinoza, the well-known philosopher, suggests that emotion, which is like a passion, ceases to be such once an individual forms a clear and distinct idea of the same. One of the things that you will see is a lot of times people describe emotions or emotional upheavals as a result of hormonal changes, as a result of particular kind of physiological or neurological events. The thing is, once you start understanding the locus of these events, once you start understanding why you are feeling extremely angry or extremely disappointed, or you're feeling extremely low on a particular day, and because of what this is happening, you basically the intensity of that emotion diminishes, the intensity of what you're feeling diminishes, and in that sense one gets a better idea of how to deal with them. All right. Even William James, the father of psychology, in his famous book Principles of Psychology, proposes that the act of naming emotions, you call out that, oh, this is exactly what I'm feeling, pinpointing that, temporarily reduces the force of the feelings. It reduces the amount of surge in these feelings that one is feeling. More recently, however, emotions are also thought to be relatively uncontrollable, and with direct attempts at regulating one's own emotional state often backfiring. So, a more recent account of emotions and emotions as both aspect of physiological and cognitive arousal. We've seen there are so many theories: James Lange, Karen Barth, Shachter Singer. There are so many theories of emotions, but typically, for example, Ledoux says that emotions are relatively uncontrollable. Once you're feeling something, it is very difficult to not to immediately snap out of that feeling. If I'm feeling very happy or if I'm feeling very sad, it's relatively difficult to snap out of that. And direct attempts at controlling one's feeling, down regulating one's feeling, sometimes don't work. Actually, they end up making you feel worse sometimes. It's just like if I ask you to not think of the pink elephant is all what you end up thinking about. So in this whole course, we have actually talked about different kinds of things. We've talked about processing race information, gender information, how these lead to stereotypes. We've talked about people who profess to be egalitarian, want to control them, and find it very difficult to control the effect or the influence of these stereotypes on their own behavior. So we have been seeing so far in the series, this is the 36th lecture, in the last 35 lectures also, you have seen the fact that it is very difficult to actively control our emotions. Yes, regulation, which we've been talking about in the last week or so, deliberatively or automatically is still something that people struggle with. And not all people sort of, become very good at it. A lot of people need a lot of training to sort of, control and get a grip on their emotions. But this is something, the idea that we were talking about, verbalizing our emotions and how it may have this potential to reduce how intensely we are feeling those, has also, it's not only part of conventional wisdom, it's not only part of people typically practice, even, despite not being experts and stuff. It has actually also found its way through different forms of psychotherapy. For example, cognitive behavioral therapy and psychoanalysis both basically ask individuals to verbalize their feelings, and with the hope that during that process they will be able to manage or transform those feelings into more rational outcomes or into more rational perspectives. If I'm talking about the fact that, oh, I'm so angry at somebody for a certain reason, when I'm describing the entire genesis of that feeling and the the extent to which I am feeling angry or the extent to which I am feeling sad, what happens through cognitive behavioral therapy, for that matter, is that I might arrive at a rational perspective. I might arrive at a different way to look at the scheme of events and understand how it's almost like getting that epiphany that, okay, I should probably not be sad with this, because this is something that happens with everybody, with all, and it is a common thing that keeps happening in the world. So this idea that verbalizing one's feeling can have mental and physical health benefits has also been captured experimentally through work on expressive writing. So one of the ways, not only talking, but it also, if you are writing expressively, if you are basically describing what you're feeling, a lot of people, you will know that, for example, they have the habit of writing diaries. It's considered a very good habit by therapists. It's considered a very good habit in the sense that it provides you with some perspective at the end of the day. And when you're writing about what you're feeling at any point in time, that also sort of it allows you this avenue to vent out. And once you vent out, almost seems like that the cloud has just passed away, and it's not feeling as intense as before. So Pennebaker and Bell and different other researchers, basically they did these studies where they required participants to write about their past negative experiences on 4 successive days. So 4 continuous days the participants kept coming, and they were being asked to write about their negative experiences, whatever they have experienced over the past few days. It was discovered that these participants' visit to the doctors actually decreased over the following half-year period compared to people who wrote just about their trivial experiences. So it seems that these were patients, these were people who were visiting the psychotherapists for some kind of counseling, for some kind of help. And when they were actually encouraged to write about their negative experiences, write all what they're feeling, where are these feelings coming from, how do they want to go about that, eventually what was seen is that people themselves, it seems that they got some perspective, it seems that they got this idea of being able to regulate these feelings better. And as a result, you could see that in the following 6 months period, their visits to the doctors actually decreased significantly, which meant that they did not feel the need for professional help to be dealing with those traumas that they had experienced. And this is not really just the Pennebaker studies. There have been a large number of studies which have actually shown and documented the health benefits of expressive writing. And it has been across different domains. Say, for example, the physical health benefits include benefits in blood pressure, chronic pain, cancer-related symptoms, lung functioning, liver functioning, and even improvements in immunity. So it seems that this is a very interesting and a very useful way to deal with one's feeling. Either you find somebody who you can talk to, you can share completely what you're feeling, how you're feeling, and the works, or you just start keeping a diary where you're writing about whatever you're feeling every day, which events are making you very happy, which events are making you angry or sad, and especially with negative feelings. So this obviously works a lot more with negative feelings. If we are able to express, write, document, talk about our negative feelings, it has been shown, research supports the idea that it not only has mental health benefits but physical health benefits as well, as we just saw. So blood pressure, chronic pain, lung functioning, liver functioning, immunity, even cancer related symptoms. Again, it does not imply that these things are some sort of medical things that will completely take your diseases away. But if those diseases are of psychosomatic origins, then obviously they will be able to provide some relief on that account. Also, different studies have shown that expressive writing translates into benefits in general emotional well-being as well, and general improvements in mental health as well. Again, if you are able to pen down or speak out our emotional upheavals that we go throughout the day, obviously it will provide mental health benefits. Obviously it will provide us with a better perspective, with in some sense, when you're writing something, you write everything down and you take a break, you come back and look at it, you already start seeing, oh, this is not well written, this is probably a foolish thought, this is something I should not be taking too seriously. And once you get into the habit of doing that, expressive writing, that is, it certainly adds that extra benefit of improving your overall emotional well-being, improving your overall mental health. And this is again what we are going to try and understand in the few lectures that are going to come after this. So, although it is unclear that which aspects of expressive writing produce the mental and physical health benefits, it is certainly evident that merely thinking about negative experiences, again, without organizing them into words, without putting them into words, either speaking them out or writing them, it does not carry the same benefits. So if you're brooding, if you're ruminating over your negative thoughts, if the negative thoughts of anger, of sadness, of disappointment, of feeling I don't know, annoyed at somebody or annoyed at something in life, if you continue brooding over them, it actually has the contrary effect. If you continuously are thinking about negative things in life, it will actually have negative effects. It will be detrimental for your mental health and overall emotional well-being. Now, where is this really coming from? Let's try and begin the process of understanding this whole phenomena. Is this actually intentional emotional regulation while we are writing, while we are speaking out? Are we emotionally down-regulating the effect of these things, or are we unintentionally doing it? Is this some kind of mechanism that allows us to unintentionally emotionally regulate? So let's try and understand that. So while the process of process of expressive writing seems very similar to that of emotional regulation, per se it does not carry some of the very important hallmarks associated with emotional regulation that we've been discussing in a few lectures past. For example, for emotional regulation, one typically thinks of an actual intention, of a conscious intention to change one's emotional experience, or at least the outward manifestations of that. For example, if you're feeling extremely angry, we've seen how people struggle with the effects of stereotypes. If you're feeling extremely angry, or if you're feeling extremely sad, there are two things you can do. You can actually either drown in that feeling, or you can say that, okay, I will mentally try to deal with this. And the first thing will be that, okay, let me try and change the outward signs of it. I should not appear with droopy shoulders, with a hung up mouth, and things like that. I will at least first try to change the outward manifestations of either sadness or anger, or I will, and at the same time, I think not or, but along with that, I'll try to mentally rationalize to reduce the effects of how sad or how angry you're feeling at that point. So whether verbalizing either during expressive writing or other forms of expression constitutes an intentional or unintentional form of emotional regulation is not very clear in the literature so far. So it's not really clear whether we are actively making this decision to down-regulate while we are writing or speaking expressively, or whether it is something that is happening automatically when you write or when you express yourself. So this distinction between intentional versus unintentional emotional regulation is not very clear, and it's clear probably a little bit in early work on emotional regulation, studies of Lazarus and colleagues in 1964 and 5. But again, there seems to be a deficit in a clear understanding of how expressive writing or expressive speaking, especially when it comes to negative emotions, actually provides us with a degree of relief about them. Now, in some of the studies, for example, participants' physiological arousal was measured, typically while they were watching, some kinds of disturbing films, very sad, very violent films maybe, and later they were provided a verbal narrative explaining the content of the said film in different ways. And then the changes in physiological measures were physiological responses were measured again. So once their basically physiological states like skin conductance, heart rate, etc., were measured while they were watching the movies, and in the second time, what has been done is they are basically being described these scenes, and their physiological arousals are measured again. So this time you are having in one time you are actually just seeing the movie, and in the other time you are having a commentary of the movie, and again your physiological responses are being measured. For instance, telling subjects that the scene that they were about to see, for example, it's an extremely violent scene or a gory movie or something like that. If you tell people that the scene that they were about to see was actually created by actors appearing to get injured, and these injuries were actually fake, actually led to diminished skin responses. So when you tell people that, oh, this is not real, and you explicitly make it out there that, oh, this is not real, see, this is fake blood, this is basically very good acting, very nice special effects and so on. And this led to reduction in physiological responses to injury or stress or the pain that you will feel as a result of empathizing with them, as compared to when the subjects physiological responses for subjects who were not informed about these things, who were not explicit. See, typically you would say that everybody knows that movies are make believe fiction and so on. But the fact is, a lot of times we get very engrossed in watching them, and we sort of lose that sense with the idea that, oh, this is all make believe, this is all acting, and nobody's really getting hurt or crying or killing each other and so on. But the fact is, in these conditions, what happened was, in one case they were actually provided an explicit narrative about this, and in the other case they were provided no narrative about this. And basically what was seen was that when people were provided explicit narrative that these injuries were fake and etc., the physiological responses to those injuries and those scenes actually diminished significantly. So what basically is happening here is probably the framing of the scene changes changes the appraisal of the scene's meaning, and thus seems to have some kind of regulatory effects in terms of diminished skin conductance response, reduced heart rate and so on. And again, it is not very clear that why this is happening. It is whether people are actively or consciously down regulating their emotions, or that this is just happening through some kind of a semantic route, that they now understand that these things are fake and they are make believe. Now, a range of work on placebo effects, for example, also has very similar underlying explanations. For example, a belief or an appraisal that a pill will prevent pain actually leads to diminished experience of pain, despite the fact that for half of these trials the pills were actually having no active ingredients. So if you and a lot of people say that about homeopathy, and I don't want to take sides here, but a lot of people, you will say, argue the same about homeopathy, that at the concentrations that of active ingredients that are measured, they seem to be at best placebo effects and so on. But the fact is, people do report feeling better as a result of homeopathic medicine, or as a result of some of these placebo treatments. So what is it that is happening in the brain that is making people feel that relief, making people feel better about this, is something that is not very clear. Also, fMRI research, for example, attributes these reappraisal processes in the hands of the subjects, and thus makes and basically makes the process fully overt in allowing subjects to understand aversive stimuli in ways that make them less aversive. So fMRI researchers basically, when they are dealing with these kind of experiments, they basically attribute all of this actively to subjects. They say that subjects are reappraising, they are re-understanding the meaning of the events and the stimuli in new ways that make them less aversive, and hence the emotional down regulation that is observed is basically coming about. So if you keep all of this together, the range of different kinds of studies that talk about this, it seems that expressive writing studies and appraisal studies together suggest that verbal processing of emotional content, putting feelings in words, basically, that's the nutshell. Putting feelings in words basically causes explicit changes to the framing of the emotional content, and actually can serve to regulate emotional responses even in the absence of any obvious regulatory intent. Even if you are not trying to downplay something, even if you are not trying to actively feel less sad or less angry, the fact that you are verbalizing, the fact that you are venting out, automatically leads to these reductions. Okay, so it does not require a conscious intention or an active effort on our part to down regulate. But as soon as we have avenues to vent out by expressive writing or by speaking to somebody, sharing our feelings with somebody, it has this automatic effect of down regulation of these emotional feelings. Now, both these paradigms, typically could produce these spontaneous intentions to regulate one's emotions, and this is something that is not measured. So the idea is that we were saying that the locus is not very clear. Where are these down regulating effects coming from? It is possible that both of these paradigms are producing automatic intentions to regulate one's emotions, and this is something that is causing these feelings. This is one possibility, but two other lines of research actually suggest that the intention to regulate one's affect is not really absolutely necessary for the disruption of this negative effect. Again, as I was just saying moments ago, you don't need a conscious effort or an active intention from your own part to be able to down regulate, to be down regulating. It happens by itself once you get a chance for writing expressively, venting out your feelings either through writing or through speaking. For instance, Wilson and Schooler conducted a series of studies demonstrating the fact that reflecting upon and writing about one's own affective states actually disrupted the impact that their affective states would otherwise have had on their decision making. So this is again something that is established through a large number of studies, through different kinds of paradigms, through conventional wisdom, through therapeutic interventions, through experimental studies, that reflecting upon when you're thinking about and sharing with somebody and writing about one's own affective states, the effect sort of gets reduced. It does not tend to be that overpowering and overwhelming. Interestingly, in all of these studies, the task was never focused on emotional regulation. So none of these experiments that we are reporting here actually actively asked people to regulate their emotions. It just happened by itself. Okay, and these Wilson and Schooler studies, their tasks were basically just to make good decisions without getting too affected by their own emotions, and just consulting one's own affective responses as a guide to these decisions. So as soon as people started thinking about, oh, how am I feeling, or how or they started to write about how they are feeling with response to a particular decision, it automatically sort of reduced the effects of those decisions. Interestingly, in one study, when individuals were asked to choose between a number of works of art, and they had the choice that you can take one of these artworks home with them, and so this is a broad task. Some individuals were also asked to reflect on their feelings about each of their prints before announcing their rating. So in one case, they are just said, okay, just think about this. Do you like this? Do you not like this? And you choose which one you want to take home. Just that much. In another case, they are basically asked to really reflect and describe about how they are feeling towards that work of art before they select something for a print or announce their rating that, oh, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and so on. Surprisingly, individuals who actually were engaged in this task of reflecting on their feelings before choosing were more likely to choose an art print that they themselves would later actually regret choosing than individuals who did not reflect on their feelings. Okay, so this is rather interesting that when you are going through that conscious, in some sense bringing these things into conscious expression, then automatically if you've chosen something and you later regret, oh, why did I buy this? It's a lot like shopping. When you go to a shop, you're finding nice products in the aisle. Maybe in a cloth store, you're finding different things. You like something all at once and you just pay for it and you buy it, and it's suddenly after that, if you've not really given it enough thought, you feel, oh, why did I buy this? This was not that much, this was not worth the amount of money that I paid, or I did not like it, maybe I'll not wear it anymore, and so on. So it's again a very interesting idea. It's a very interesting primer that we should be doing this a lot more. The authors of this study suggested that some aspects of feeling states are more verbalizable than others, and when people make a decision, and the fact that verbal feelings are weighted more than non-verbal feelings. So it's interesting if you are reasoning with yourself, if you are establishing rationally why you are feeling what you're feeling, that gets automatically more weight in the decision making process, and it will seem to affect your decisions or make your decisions more rational, less affected by the overwhelming influence of emotions. So if good decisions are driven by feelings that cannot be easily verbalized, relying on that, on feelings which can be verbalized, will produce suboptimal decisions. So if you are making decisions based on feelings that you cannot really talk about, that are just very amorphous in some sense to express, then they will tend to produce suboptimal decisions. On the other hand, if you are making decisions based on feelings that you can verbalize, you can put out, you can reflect upon, then they will probably lead to better and more rational decisions, so to speak. I'm using the word rational here, but it's not with the very philosophical connotation. The idea is less emotional or more emotional. Now, it is also possible that, however, that verbalizing one's feelings temporarily alters the feeling states themselves by just dampening them a little bit, okay, reducing the intensity of them. Interestingly, behavioral data alone cannot easily tease apart these two interpretations. Whether it whether we weight verbal information more, or whether we dampen the feeling states, which of the two explanations really works. And this was actually one of the original incentives for using fMRI to examine this issue, and we'll see in the coming slides or coming lectures, how does it sort of fMRI sort of help us solve these things. So one more study by Greenberg and colleagues basically try to address this issue more directly, the issue of whether regulatory intent is actually critical and its benefits of putting feelings into words are really there. So in their study, an expressive writing paradigm similar to Pannebacker's was used, except that there was an additional condition wherein participants were asked to write about a trauma, but one that was imagined rather than real. So this time they are not asked to write about a real trauma, but just write about an imagined trauma. Interestingly, despite the imaginary state of the traumas that these people were writing about, individuals showed benefits of expressive writing similar to those seen in previous studies. So even if we are sort of talking about imaginary troubles and imaginary traumas, it sort of makes things you will say calmer and more relaxed, and the influence sort of comes down. So it is therefore, it's difficult to argue that these benefits will therefore arrive from or derive from any actual conscious attempts at emotional regulation. Basically, probably what is happening is that the understanding that people have of themselves and of those around them typically guide our emotional lives, okay, and thus new understandings, when we are verbalizing them, the new understandings that we reach through introspection, through disclosure, through reappraisal, undoubtedly has the power to transform one's emotional responses. See, it's almost like the first emotional response and the second one and the third one. It's almost like if you're revisiting that thing several times. It's almost like if you retell the same joke again and again, it loses the power to make people laugh. Similarly, if you rethink, introspect, write about your sadness or your anger or your envy or your disappointment, again and again, your cynicism again and again, you sort of start getting a different perspective. You share it with somebody, they will have their own inputs, you disclose it to somebody, you reappraise the whole situation. When you're writing it down, you say, oh, maybe I was wrong here, maybe this other person, I could have sort of responded differently and it would not have led to the chain of events that caused anger or fight or something like that. So this is something that is very, very interesting. And the authors actually suggest that some of the benefits derived from these therapeutic techniques actually may result from the neurocognitive consequences of just putting feeling into words. It's nothing. It's not that you are consciously or unconsciously trying to regulate your feelings, but it is something that just because you're putting your feelings into words, it is helping you get a new perspective. It is lowering down the intensity or the overwhelming influence of that feeling state, of that emotional state that you're going through. And if this is the case, these benefits could be put to actually good use therapeutically, even in cases in which an individual is unwilling or unable to engage in emotional regulation. So something that therapists practice and probably do that a lot And again, even if you're not a therapist, you can do that with yourself, you can do that with your friends, your family members, that just get people to talk about their feelings, just get them to tell you, write about their feelings. If the feelings are too personal to be shared with somebody, you can just ask them to please do start this habit of writing a diary and vent out your feelings and stuff, and it'll probably help you in the long run. We've seen that it helps in the long run in terms of both physical health as well as mental health. So that's all for this lecture. I'll talk to you about the same thing. We'll try and understand how this really happens in the next lecture. Thank you so much.